Hello, fourth graders. So last cycle, we talked about the parts of a circle. Today we're talking about the parts of a square. You will need several things for this work. The first thing you will need are your cardstock square insets. There should be 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you need those. You will want a pencil, probably a ruler. Doesn't hurt to have a ruler on hand. You'll want construction paper and a scissors, as well as a glue stick. And then of course, your geometry notebook. I'm just going to use this piece of paper here, but you can do this work in your geometry notebook. So the first thing you'll want to do is cut out your square inset number 1, just the square. I'm going to use the actual Montessori material here to do this work, but you'll use your cardboard square insets that you have in your folder. Remember not to cut, so you'll cut the square out, but you won't want to actually cut in the square because you're going to be using this to trace your work. Same for these. You'll cut the square out and cut down the line, but you won't want to cut or draw or make marks on the actual rectangles or squares because you'll use these for tracing. So be careful with these. These are important. When you're done cutting them out, put them in a safe place. I'm going to put mine in a Ziploc baggie, and maybe you put it next to your other geometry work or put it in your geometry folder. So keep these safe because you'll use these several times. So I'm going to cut out a square, and you'll use your inset. So first I'm going to trace it. We got to get our square out so we can do the part of the square. And now I'm going to cut it. Okay, I'm going to label my notes. Before we go much further, I want to label my notes parts of a square. Okay, I'm going to glue down my square. Maybe. Ah, there we go. Glue that down. Okay. Now we can begin by labeling our different parts. I'm going to zoom in here so you can see. Okay. The first thing that we can label is the diagonal. The diagonal of the square goes from one corner to another. We're going to use our handy dandy ruler for this. Do not just draw a line by hand. Use a straight edge like a ruler. A diagonal is like this. Goes from corner to corner. It could also go from this corner to this corner. We're going to label this diagonal. All right. The median is the square folded in half. Okay, so you could use your square inset, you could use half of, or one of the rectangles to put this in half, or you can take your square, or you glue it down, and fold it in half. That gives us a guideline that we can then use our ruler to draw a line down the middle. This line is called the median. That goes through the center of the square. It could also go this way. Okay. All right, next, as you can see, we created a triangle out of the square right here. You can also use our material to show that we created a triangle. So this square, there's parts of this triangle that we also want to talk about. The vertex of a square are the corners. So that's where the sides meet up. So this right here would be called the vertex. The vertex is where lines meet up. This is a vertex, here's a vertex, vertex, vertex. Okay, so we've got 4 vertexes, vertexi, on our square. Back to our triangle, we created our triangle. Our triangle has a couple different parts too. The sides of our triangle, or which make up the square, are called a cathetus. The plural for cathetus is catheti, or catheti. So cathetus, that's a side. I'm also going to label this side too, just so we know that it's on both sides. And these are the legs when we're talking about the right angle triangle. So we're not just looking at the parts of a square, we're also looking at the parts of this right angle triangle as well. So when we're talking about the right angle triangle, again, they're not just called sides, they're legs, or the cathetus. On the right angle triangle as well, the diagonal is also the same as the hypotenuse. We'll put that down here. The hypotenuse is the diagonal line, so it's the same as the diagonal, that's opposite of the 90-degree angle. So if we're looking at our right angle triangle, here's our 90-degree angle, the hypotenuse is this line right here, which is the same as the diagonal of the square. All right, so these are our vocabulary, our nomenclature for the parts of a square and also the parts of a right angle triangle. The next thing you need to do is cut out the rest of your insets. And you're going to label the shape of the square inset as well as the fractional value. For example, I'm going to move this off to the side. We'll bring that back. I'm going to cut out my right angle triangle. That's in your square inset number 3. That's this one. So I'm going to cut that out. I'm going to trace it. And I'm just using scrap construction paper. And we'll cut that out. And we need to label this shape. So I already actually told you what it was. We'll glue it down. And this isn't just a triangle. Let's be specific with our shape. This is a isosceles, a right-angled isosceles triangle. So we're going to label the shape. Right-angled, spell angled correctly, isosceles triangle. Oh my goodness. It's important that we get the spelling right. A right-angled isosceles triangle, and then you're also going to label the fractional value of the whole square. So this is one piece, it's one piece, and how many can fit in the square altogether? 2. So this is 1/2 of the square. So I'm going to label it 1/2. You're going to do that for all of the square insets. I'll do another example with you. So you'll do it for square insets 3, number 3, which are these two, number 2. So you'll cut these out, trace just one of them, and glue it on, and then square inset 4. Let's do the example of, let's take square inset number 2. Cut these out. I'm going to use one of these little pieces. I'm going to use the actual Montessori material though, which is this guy. Okay, so I'm going to cut him out, trace and cut. And use your construction paper wisely. So don't just don't put this little square right in the middle. Put it off to the side like I did so you can use your paper, more of your paper. Okay, I'm gonna put this on the back. Oh, never mind, there's writing on the back. I'll put it to the side. I'll glue it down. Okay, this shape, of course, is a square. And now we need to figure out what the fractional value of this square is. If we go back to our square insets, the whole square has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 parts in it. And this is one of those parts. So our fraction would look like 1/16, like this. Okay, once again, you're going to do that for all of them in here. These two, and these two. So all together, you'll have cut out, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You'll cut out 9 shapes and glue them into your notebook. On the square, I'd like you to label these parts, and then for the other shapes, I'd like you to label the shape and the fractional value to the whole square. All right, that is all I have for you. Enjoy this time working with your Montessori material and working with your hands.